In 1975, a Kentucky preacher denounced a country song from his own pulpit. 60 stations refused to play it. It was Loretta Lynn banned from country radio at least 8 times, and still 16 #1 hits deep. If you want the real stories behind country music, not just the highlight reel, subscribe now because tonight, we're finding out why radio kept trying to silence her, and why it never worked. Number 5. Don't Come Home A-Drinkin, with Lovin' on Your Mind, 1966. This is where it started. Loretta Lynn had already been recording for 6 years by 1966, but she'd never had a #1 hit, and she'd never fully written from the sharpest edge of her own life either. That changed when her younger sister, Peggy Sue, brought her an idea for a song about husbands who came home late, drunk, and still expecting affection like nothing had happened. Both women had lived it. Loretta's husband, Oliver, everyone called him Doolittle, was a known heavy drinker, and so was Peggy Sue's. Together, the sisters finished the song, and Loretta recorded it that October at Bradley's barn outside Nashville. Country radio in 1966 was not built for a woman telling her husband no. Some stations refused to touch it. But by February of 1967, Don't Come Home A-Drinkin had done what 4 years of polite, radio-friendly singles never managed at hit #1, becoming the first of what would eventually be 16 chart-topping hits in Loretta Lynn's career, and the first country #1. Then you come in, kissing on me, it happens there. Written by the woman singing it. It also won her the CMA's Female Vocalist of the Year the following year. Radio tried to bury her debut as a truth-teller. Instead, it announced her. Number 4. Fist City, 1968. By 1968, Loretta Lynn and Doolittle had settled into a farm in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. While Loretta was on the road, which, by then, was constantly word got back to her that a local woman had been pursuing her husband and bragging about it around town. Loretta didn't write a song about heartbreak. She wrote a warning. Fist City is exactly what it sounds like. A direct, name-free threat to any woman who came near her marriage, delivered with a smile and a fiddle behind it. "You'd better close your mouth and back away," she sang, "'cause I'll grab you by the hair of the head and lift you off the ground." Radio stations in 1968 didn't quite know what to do with a woman threatening violence in a country song, something considered unladylike by the standards of the format at the time, and several stations refused to air it. Doolittle himself reportedly doubted the song would ever be a hit. He was wrong, and so was radio. Fist City became Lynn's second #1 single.
Note.
Listen, the way you hit that last note sounded like you singing it to somebody. See?
Decades later, her handwritten lyrics for the song were donated to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, proof that what once got a song banned for being too aggressive eventually got recognized as American history. Number 3. Wings Upon Your Horns, 1969. Not every banned Loretta Lynn song was about a fight. Some were quieter.
I'm the first to know I ain't.
And this one might be the most misunderstood of the bunch. Recorded the same October day as her signature song, Coal Miner's Daughter, Wings Upon Your Horns tells the story of a young woman who's smooth-talked into losing her virginity.
And turn me to a woman.
By a man who promises marriage and never delivers. What got this one banned wasn't the subject exactly. It was the language Lynn wrapped around it. She used religious imagery throughout.
I can't stand
halos turning into thorns, wings hung up on horns, an innocent country girl becoming a woman of the world. To some listeners and program directors in 1969, mixing that kind of sacred language with a story about premarital sex felt like a step too far.
Your horn and turn my halo into
And stations pulled it from rotation. The band didn't stop the song from reaching number 11 on Billboard's solid, if not spectacular by Lynn's standards, and notably her first secular single in 6 years.
my wings up on your horn.
To miss the country top 10. It's one of the lesser-remembered entries in her catalog of controversy today, mostly because the 2 songs that followed it were so much bigger. If you're the kind of country fan who wants the real story behind the songs, not just the highlight reel, you're exactly where you should be.
You hung my wings up on.
Subscribe to the Country Untold, because Loretta Lynn is far from the only artist Nashville tried to keep quiet. Up to this point, every one of these bands came from something personal, a marriage, a fight, a broken promise. What happens next is different. The next 2 songs weren't just about Loretta Lynn's life anymore. They were about every woman listening to her.
Let you hang my wings up on your horn.
Number 2, Rated X, 1972. By 1972,
If she started looking good, you should have known it would.
Loretta Lynn had just become the first woman ever named Entertainer of the Year by the Country Music Association, the single biggest honor in the format, and one that had only ever gone to men before her.
And if you're rated X, yes.
Her response was to write one of the most pointed songs of her career. Rated X is about the double standard divorced women faced in the early 1970s, treated as damaged goods by other women and as fair game by men.
You like you're bad, the men all hope you are. But if
While divorced men faced no such judgment at all. If you've been married and things didn't seem to work out, she sang, you're gonna be talked about, I can guarantee. Several radio stations banned it outright for being too pointed about a subject country music simply didn't discuss directly.
even men turn and silver try to make, but I think it's the wrong.
It didn't matter. Fueled partly by the controversy itself, Rated X shot to number 1 in both the United States and Canada and stayed on the American chart for 14 weeks, becoming her 6th solo chart topper.
Kind of gold, even men turn and silver try to make, but
On the same album that celebrated her historic CMA win. Decades later, Jack White and the White Stripes would keep Rated X in their live sets, and White would go on to produce Lynn's Grammy-winning 2004 album, Van Leer Rose, a reminder that the song radio once refused to play eventually reached an entirely different generation on its own terms.
and when your best friend's a husband.
Number 1, The Pill, 1975. Everything up to this point belongs on this list. But The Pill is different.
Hello. Well,
Because this isn't just the story of one band's song, it's the story of the moment Loretta Lynn became something bigger than a country singer. Released in 1975,
in a dark pit, I turned down your brooder.
3 years after the Supreme Court's ruling on contraception access had reshaped the national conversation, The Pill is sung from the perspective of a wife finally taking control of her own body after years of near-constant pregnancy. There's gonna be some changes made right here on Nursery Hill, she sang. You've set this chicken your last time, 'cause now I've got the pill. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't accidental. Lynn had married at 14,
For all those years since I've got the pill.
had her first child at 15, and was a grandmother by 29. She later said plainly that if birth control had existed for her the way it did by 1975, she'd have used it. She loved her 6 children, but she would have spaced them out.
No, not you, honey. I was talking to the baby. Wait a minute, honey, the doorbell. Honey, could you stop the...
Country radio was not ready. At least 60 stations across the country refused to play The Pill. At least one Kentucky preacher denounced Lynn from the pulpit by name. And still,
Yeah. But here Topeka, the rain is a falling.
Despite the biggest ban of her career, the song climbed to number 5 on the country chart and became one of the most enduring, most requested songs of her entire catalog, a record that outlasted the controversy by decades.
Oh, but Daddy, don't you worry now.
Loretta Lynn never framed herself as an activist. She said, again and again, that she was just singing about her own life. But the pill did something bigger than any chart position could measure. It gave a generation of women a song that said what they weren't allowed to say out loud, sung by a coal miner's daughter from Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, who'd lived every line of it.
'Cause now I've got the pill.
8 songs banned, 16 number 1 hits, a preacher denouncing her by name from the pulpit, and a Grammy-winning collaboration with Jack White decades later. Loretta Lynn's entire career is proof of something country radio never quite figured out how to stop. You can pull a song from rotation, but you can't unhear a truth once it's been sung out loud. She never set out to be controversial. She just refused to pretend her life was tidier than it was the drinking, the fighting, the 14-year-old bride, the 6 kids, the marriage that was complicated in ways she never smoothed over for the sake of radio. Every ban was really just proof that she was telling the truth a little too clearly for somebody's comfort. Which one of these got you the most? The fight, the faith, or the pill? And is there another artist you think country radio tried to silence and got wrong? Tell me in the comments. The Country Untold isn't finished with this story.